Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm JC. Today's video is going to be episode 8. Yes, episode 8 of my editing vlog series. Mind you, there will be some interspersed clips from other previous vlogs of me working on these chapters that have transpired since episode 7 of this series. Because once again, I did not film as I went along like I was supposed to. And I tried to piece together some clips that show different points of the process during these chapters. And then I do a whole nother little recap at the end there. So I'm trying to get better. I'm working on it, y'all. I'm working on it. But yeah, I'm just gonna roll footage. Not entirely sure what you're gonna see here, but these are the next few chapters, and I'll see you on the other side. So I messed up, as I usually do when I go off script for my outline. So I just finished chapter 12. Yeah, 12. I'm getting ready to go to chapter 13, which is Brian's chapter. And I just go over my outline, and I'm like, no, all of that already. I messed up. I changed course, I think in the end of chapter 11. No, in the midst of chapter 12, I think I changed some things that were going to happen, and then had remembered to input a conversation that I had forgot needed to go in there. And then that shifted how the characters acted in a certain scene that wasn't in the outline. Which now has changed everything for chapter 13. And I do mean everything. I just went over and I'm like, I can't use any of this except for maybe the last 2 bullet points. See, even us outliners have issues when we don't stick to the damn outline. Okay, I'll be back. I am no longer calling it a romance novel because it's not. It's a contemporary fiction novel because the story does not rely heavily on the romance part. There's romance in the book, but doesn't rely heavily on the romance. So, changing me calling it a romance novel because it's not. As we've already discovered here, I go off outline quite a bit sometimes. And a lot of times it doesn't get me into trouble where I can't pull it back and get back on track. This is not one of those times. I fixed one part earlier. That's what I was working on before, but now I have to fix something in chapter 14 so that it can coincide with the part that I fixed in chapter 13. So now, I don't know, I'm going to try to fix this and hopefully I can get back on track so that I can continue chapter 14. I mean, it's already not going to be what's in the outline because in the outline, they're at the hotel and they have their first kiss, which I was a little excited about because it was the first time they've kissed since, they had their thing back in high school. But now she's still in the hospital. She's getting ready to have the surgery for the bone marrow transplant. So they're gonna get to the hotel part when she's recovering, but it's just not gonna be now. So, and then in chapter 14, they're supposed to be having this conversation, but I just made that in chapter 13, or at least part of the conversation in chapter 13, so that I could at least remedy that part of what's not going to happen in chapter 14. But now, when's the first kiss going to be? And then, well, it's no longer a romance, so it's not really about the love affair now. Which, thank God. But they still have to kiss, and they still have to have that build up for the final scene of the whole entire novel. Um, well, for them eventually getting together. But, gosh. And I know where I went wrong off the outline, and I don't regret the scene that wasn't in the outline before that I've changed, that kind of changed everything. I don't regret that scene, but man, has it caused some problems. Anyway, I'm gonna let the tea cool off first, and then I'll drink my tea while I try to figure out this issue. Oh, hey there. Um, we're in episode 8 of this editing vlog series, and I might have forgotten to film a lot since I left off last time. It happens. Um, Sometimes I just get into the writing flow, and I don't think that I'm supposed to be filming this also with updates. So, recap. I think the last, adjust this here. I left off, I was still in chapter 12. I don't think I had finished chapter 12 at the end of episode 7 of this vlog series. I am now in chapter 15, getting ready to go to chapter 16 in a little bit. And let's see what has happened. Well, since you asked. Hold on. Just 1 second. Okay, so I think yeah. Okay, I was getting ready to go into Bryant's chapter, which is chapter 13. In which he checked them into a hotel while Autumn is in the hospital getting prepared to she's done the testing, she's a match, she's going to give her bone marrow to Spencer. Well, in chapter 13 he's checking their things and stuff into the hotel, and he's doing a lot of him thinking and still processing the fact that he has a daughter and that his daughter was kept from him, and going over, he's met Cassie. Him and Cassie have this friction, obviously, because, Cassie's arrangement concerning Spencer's adoption was with Autumn. Bryant wasn't involved, which poses a legal problem. I'll get there. Hold on. And so in this chapter, he's also texting with Michelle, his fiance, and he's conflicted because he knows he still has feelings for Autumn. He's known that since he saw her at her father's house. But now that now that he knows they have a daughter together, it's a deepening. It's a bond that deepens their connection even more. So now his feelings are just growing again, and he doesn't know what to do with that. He doesn't want to hurt his fiance, but he knows hurting her, not telling her how he feels is also hurting her. So let's see, chapter 13 is really just a lot of him processing inner thoughts and stuff, processing the whole getting the hotel and everything. And he has a confrontation with Cassie in this chapter after he goes back to the hospital. He tries to avoid it, but Cassie is a very, how should I put this? She just rubs people the wrong way. And it's almost like she does it on purpose. So, she kind of, I don't want to say she started it, but, yeah, she kind of said some things and it agitated him. Let's just say Cassie and Bryant had some words in chapter 13. He made his feelings clear that he has every intention of being in his daughter's life. He makes it clear also that his or her arrangement was with Autumn, not him. He didn't sign anything. And come to find out, here's where I go back to the legalities of this thing. There were no legal papers signed for this adoption. Autumn, she was 16. She was young. All she knew is that she wasn't prepared to raise a baby. But Cassie knew better because Cassie's an adult. Why are there no legal papers, mind you? That will be answered later on in the book when some secrets and things start coming out and some of Cassie's past starts coming out. She has a criminal past, but also, as you guys know, she turns out to be Autumn's biological mother, which she doesn't know that. But her criminal past also plays a part into why they couldn't get the whole legal system involved in the adoption of Spencer. So, because there's no legal papers signed, technically Autumn and Bryant have full claim to their child. Cassie knows this, which is why she's so agitated and nervous about losing her child. And because of, even though we'll get there in later on in the book, how that happened and how that broke down to where Autumn was not raised by Cassie. But let's just say it wasn't her willingness to give up Autumn. It was things happened, and let's just say she felt like, Autumn was kind of basically snatched from her. Not snatched. She knew, whatever. She just basically felt like she had no choice in the matter. And because of certain things in her background, she had no remedy for the matter. So now she's getting nervous because she feels like another child is about to be taken from her. That is going to happen, but it's not the point. So that is the crux of chapter 13, Bryant and Cassie's interaction with one another. It's very clear Bryant has a bad vibe about Cassie. He has a bad vibe about Spencer being in Cassie's custody. He doesn't have any proof or any physical, inclination of anything actually happening or anything in the house. There is, but he doesn't have any proof of that or any physical knowledge of that. He just has a feeling. And, how she interacts with him doesn't help aid in that feeling that he already has negatively towards her. So, that chapter ends. We go to Autumn's chapter. She's preparing for the surgical procedure, the bone marrow transplant. And hold on, we'll read chapter 14. Yes. And her and Bryant have this conversation, and she's not really ready to talk about the possibility of actually having custody of Spencer because in her mind, everything is settled. In her mind, there's no going back. She made a decision. She regrets the decision she made now. But in her mind, there's no going back. There's no resolution for that. She gave her word. She gave the child up. She gave her word they would have no contact. The only reason they're having contact is because Spencer's sick. So, in her mind, it's done. And there's no going back because, she can't. But she doesn't, even though she's old enough now to understand the whole legalities and everything, it hasn't dawned on her just yet that she never signed anything. And she was 16, so she didn't know anything about doing adoptions and everything back then. She thought her aunt was going to handle all of that. But she realizes now, with all this regret that she's having after her and Brian have conversation, that she never signed anything. Well, she hasn't realized she hasn't signed anything yet. But her and Brian are going back and forth. And about the life that they could have had or provided for their daughter or whatever. And she does express regret. But she's like, there's nothing we could do to change it. What's done is done. Spencer is Cassie's child. She's raised her. So she's not really looking to undo the deal. Instinctively, she hadn't thought about it enough yet. So there's that. She also she gets calls and texts from Morgan and Cal. She doesn't respond. She's not ready to talk to them yet. There's a conversation between her and Cassie. Cassie kind of lets her know, because Bryant didn't tell her the extent of his back and forth with Cassie, because he knew she was going into surgery. He didn't really want to bog her down with all that. He didn't get into all of the details of where his mind was at, but Cassie relayed some of the conversation that she had with Brian, and she let some things slip that Autumn is going to think about later when she processes what she was said. Because she's saying things like, "This is not happening to me again. Your father did this to me once before. We're not going down. I'm not letting this happening." She says little stuff like that it's not dawning on Autumn right now. She'll think back to that later. She also says something like that in chapter 15, which is the chapter I'm currently in. Now she says something like that to Bryant. He hasn't even done it. Hasn't even processed for him. Like, he hasn't gone back and played it back in his head yet. That she's like, if there's a part where she says, "You're not taking my child from me, not again." But he didn't. It's almost like he didn't hear it. Probably because it wouldn't have made sense. And so now he's back in Autumn's room, getting ready to end chapter 15. He's back in Autumn's room. He's getting ready to tell her the conversation he had with Cassie. And so things are about to start unraveling. I believe in the next chapter. Well, I've gone so off the rails on this outline. Yo, I don't think I've ever gone this far off outline before, and I've put myself in quite a pickle because I put a conversation in earlier that wasn't in the outline and wasn't supposed to happen, but it needed to happen, and I'm glad I put it in there, but it's kind of throwing everything else off. And now there's some things in the outline that I'm not going to have happen anymore, and then there's some things that don't happen yet in the outline. Like, well, they don't have, I don't want them to happen yet, but it's in the outline for it to happen, and I don't know how to, I'm trying to navigate how to switch things around and I'm trying to fix the mess I made. So, there, I have a mess I have to fix. But right now I'm about to end chapter 15. I'll come back when I've ended it, and that'll probably be the end of episode 8. I'm so sorry that it's more of a recap instead of a bit by bit like it should have been, but I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying. I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back. I have finished my writing session for the night. I've also finished chapter 15, so I will be ready to start chapter 16 whenever episode 9 of this editing vlog comes out. It will be starting with chapter 16. I ended it, Bryant and Autumn. Okay, where was I? Okay, Bryant and Cassie had another confrontation again. And he kind of let loose and told her all of what he was feeling, that there were no legal papers signed. He has rights to his daughter, even if Autumn and her had signed any kind of papers. He never signed anything because he never knew about his daughter. He just kind of let her have it because she was just kind of being a bitch. There, I said it. But, and I get it. She's nervous. She's worried. She's raised this child the child is 8. 8 or 9. Wait, 9.
I forgot what my character sheet. Please, she's 8. But, so she's raised her for 8 years, and no, she's 9. Okay, because her son is 7, it was a 2-year difference.
But anyway, so she's raised her for 9 years, and she, that's her child. Even though there's no legal papers, and she should have gotten that remedy, she couldn't, but they don't know all that yet. But, So, um, now he's gone back and he's told Autumn. Well, gave her an update on how Spencer's doing or whatever after the surgery, after the transplant, and um, she could tell there was something else he wasn't telling her. So he kind of told her. He basically let most of his feelings out in telling her what he talked about with Cassie, or what talked would be a very, very nice word. But they didn't really talk. But well, they were in a hospital, so they weren't shouting. So the confrontation between him and Cassie, he kind of let her know what happened, and that's when it dawns on her she didn't sign anything. Cassie told her she would handle all of that she didn't have to worry about all of that. She was 16 and she just wanted to not have to be a mother at 16. So that's kind of all Cassie was the adult. She's supposed to handle all of that stuff. She also, she didn't really know her aunt, and which is why she sought her out, because she didn't really know her. And she didn't, she felt like because she didn't really know her, she didn't have to worry about her aunt telling her father that, hey, she's pregnant and she's giving her baby up, and she didn't want to have to go through all that. So she kind of just trusted her aunt would handle all of that, and that there was paperwork, but that she was handling it, there's not. So now she knows. They haven't really, Autumn hasn't really entertained the thought of actually getting custody of Spencer back. But he did let her know that, okay, because in this confrontation between him and Cassie, he saw some bruising on her. So later we'll find out, well, later it will be discovered that Cassie is in an abusive marriage. She's in a domestic violence situation, and, you know, he's very abusive to her. He could care less about Spencer. He doesn't abuse Spencer, but the fact that Spencer is seeing all of this abuse, he doesn't really care. He doesn't pay attention to Spencer. So even though he's her stepfather, because she married him when Spencer was 5. So even though he's her stepfather, he's not really interested in actually being a father figure. So, and Bryant notices the bruise, and she tries to cover it up, rolls it on her sleeves and whatever. And so he mentions this to Autumn, and he said that before he had already gotten a weird vibe or something that just didn't seem right or sit right with him about Cassie. So now there's this whole bruising on her arm, and so now he's worried that their child is being brought up in a home where there's abuse. And so, there will be that. So now the issue has come up. The end of chapter 15, they finally get to the crux of, okay, we have to actually, tell our fiancés, because mind you, they're on this trip to meet their daughter and the transplant, and their respective fiancés that are back home and know nothing about what's going on. So because they didn't really know how they were going to feel, whether they were going to want to meet their daughter, whether they were going to just leave things as they were and do what they needed to do to help her get through the cancer, and then just, be, well, in Autumn's case, uphold her end of the bargain of what she had made the arrangement for, which was to not have contact. And they didn't really know how they were going to feel, Bryant, especially because he just now found out he had a daughter. So they didn't tell their fiancés. So now they have to do that. And she has to tell her father. And so Bryant's like, there's one other person that they need to tell, and they need to tell him first. And that's Javon. He feels he owes it to them. She feels she does not owe him that. And, years ago, they're not together anymore. It shouldn't matter. She doesn't even want him in their son's life. So, but because she feels guilty and bad about not telling Bryant that she gave up their child, she goes along with it. So they agree to tell Javon together. He has always felt guilty, like he betrayed his best friend. So he's always carried that guilt about that, and that he fell in love with the woman his best friend was dating. He's always felt bad about that, so he feels he owes him. And so that's how chapter 15 ends. He texts Javon and tells him that when he gets back in town, They need to meet up. They need to talk. He ain't tell him that Autumn's going to be there when they talk, but they're going to tell him together. That's going to be interesting. So, chapter 16 is going to be Autumn's chapter, and that is where we will pick up in episode 9 of this series. Whew, I really need to keep up as I go along. This recapping life is not for me. Okay, so there you have it. Episode 8. We have come from, I believe I left off in episode 7 at the end of chapter 12. I don't think I had made it to chapter 13 yet. So this took us from chapter 13 to the end of 15. And I know that's not a lot, but it's been a while since I've done an episode. So I figured I should let you know where I'm at. At this point, I am roughly halfway through second draft of this novel, because according to my outline, which I have severely gone off the rails of, so that could change too, but according to my outline as it stands, I have 32 chapters outlined. I am going into chapter 16 next, so roughly halfway. I really need to finish this by the end of September. Cross fingers. It's probably not going to happen, but I'm going to try anyway. If not, I'm just going to end up continuing the draft into Preptober while I'm outlining book 4 of the Mackenzie Brown series, but I really don't want to do that. So that's going to be it for this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more videos from me, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button. I post videos on Mondays and Thursdays. I live stream on Wednesdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As per usual, if you would like to be supportive of me in any of my creative endeavors, such as my blog site, my online magazine, my online store, or my Ko-fi page, all of those links can be found in the description box below. Until next time, have a blessed day. Bye.